Don't skip through the video. It's information. Like I said, I'm not the most entertaining person in the world, but it's information in here that you want to get, that you want to pick up on, that you definitely want to, figure out, because, we are basically on this journey. And what I'm trying to say or to convey to people is this. The Bible is obviously parabolized. There's a lot of hidden stuff in it. Now, what I believe and what I have, basically proven is there's more to the Bible than what we read on the surface. But what I do know is somebody is trying to tell us something in that book. So to me, we have questions. We look around and we be online and reading books and doing research for days, hours, trying to figure this whole thing out. And, we only scratch the surface. These people who had their hand in making the Bible, and I also believe certain people in high-ranking positions, they know everything. They know what's going on. They know where we came from, who created us. They know it all. They have all the answers. Now, what they have done, or what some people have done, was sort of put those answers in these religious doctrines. Not for us to figure out, but for others to figure out, for us to follow. Now, as we can see, majority of the world has followed it. They've bought into it hook, line, and sinker. And it's only for those who can look past the bullshit, who do the actual research, who can see that it's more to these books, it's more to this, this whole religion thing than what we have been told. So, but I also wanted to kill two birds with one stone. Instead of putting out a whole long video on the book of Enoch, I'm going to go into it here because it's going to help us out. But we're going to start back in the Garden of Eden. Okay, so now, we have been told our whole life that Adam and Eve are the first two people. Adam first, Eve later, first two people on the planet. Now, when we read Genesis, when we go to Genesis 1:27 and 28, and we start reading about, him creating man, it says, in the image of God created he him, male and female created he them. Male and female, that's man and woman. It doesn't say anything there about, dust of the ground or breathing, breath into the nostrils, just that he created male and female in his image. So we'll come back to that. Now, you go to Genesis 2:7, where it's talking about the whole Adam, him creating Adam. So it says, he formed Adam from the dust of the ground and breathed into his nostrils the breath of life. Remember that, the breath of life. Breathed into his nostrils the breath of life, and he became alive. And then, Genesis 2:27, and we get Eve. He basically puts Adam into a deep sleep, removes one of his ribs, and creates, woman, creates Eve. So now, fast forward to Genesis 4, the whole, Cain and Abel killing, where Cain kills Abel. God basically, banishes him from his sight. And then Cain goes into the land of Nod and he finds a wife and he marries her. Who was she? Now, this is something that we really got to dig into because, of course, common sense will tell you, where did she come from? You had Cain and Abel, right? The first kids of Adam and Eve. So Cain kills Abel. It should only be 3 people left. Who is this woman in the land of Nod? Now, we got to deal with this because you got to examine both sides of the story. You're going to get religious people who's going to tell you that, well, wait a minute. This is a continuation of the Genesis story. It's not 2 separate creation stories there. It's just a continuation of Genesis. But you also get people who's going to say that, well, Adam and Eve had more children. But for people who read the Bible, we know that Adam and Eve, they do not have children before, more children before Cain kills Abel. Never in the Bible do you find that more children was born before Cain kills Abel. You don't find more children being born before Seth is born. So we know Adam and Eve, Cain, Abel, Seth. It doesn't say anything about children being born before that. We know it was children after that, after Cain kills Abel. So it couldn't have been his sister that he married. And we're going to get into why people believe that it was his sister. But we got to look at this thing. So now we know that Cain marries his wife, Genesis 4:17. And when you read Genesis 5:4, this is where it's telling you that Adam and Eve had more children. It says, in the days of Adam after he had begotten Seth were 800 years, and he begot sons and daughters. Now, this is clearly after Cain kills Abel. So understand, as I said, if Cain kills Abel, you have Adam and Eve. So that's 3 people. Where did Cain's wife come from if they didn't speak about Adam and Eve having more children until after Cain leaves and marries his wife? Where did she come from? Now, when you go back to the Genesis story about male and female created he them, you have to understand this is a whole nother creation. This is the first creation. Adam and Eve is the second creation. But you got to understand something first. If we are going to accept the Bible, face value, if we're going to just read it and accept what it says, there's no reason of doing this stuff. We're trying to figure out a parable. We're trying to, solve a riddle here and understand what's being said. So if we're going to accept what it's saying, we're not going to understand that. Now, we know the Bible is full of contradictions. It'll tell you something outright and then contradict itself. It does that for a reason. That's what a parable is about. It does that for a reason. So now when you read 1 Corinthians 15:45, it's basically saying that Adam was the first man, it says. And so it is written, the first man, Adam, was made a living soul. The last Adam was made a quickening spirit. And we know in Genesis 3, it says that basically Eve will be the mother of all people. She will be the mother of all. So now we have to understand, and we're going to accept that. We're not going to figure this out. So now we're going to accept that Adam and Eve was the first 2 people created, that Eve is the mother of all people and Adam was the first man. We will have to simply ignore Genesis 1:26-28. And that's what they want you to do. They want you to ignore that. Ignore what it just said. It just told you that people was created before Adam and Eve. It told you straight up. I don't understand how people can read that, then read, man being formed from the dust of the ground and not go back to Genesis 1:26-28 and say, well, wait a minute. I thought he already made male and female. This is where that brainwashing stuff comes into place. It makes you, ignore common sense. It's telling you right in the book that people was created before Adam and Eve. Let's go take a look. It says, and God said, let us make man in our image after our likeness, and let them have dominion over the fish of the sea and over the fowls of the air, yada, yada, yada. So God created in his own image. In the image of God created he him. Male and female created he them. And God blessed them, and God said unto them, be fruitful and multiply and replenish the earth and subdue it. So now, stop right there. This is obviously a separate creation from breathing, breath of life into the nostrils of this dust man he created. 2 separate creations. In my own image, I created male and female. Then from the dust of the ground, I created man. And from a rib of this man, I created a woman. 2 separate creations. So now the question becomes, why didn't God put those first people in the garden, but instead put Adam and Eve in the garden? What was it about those first people that was created in the image of God that made him not put them in the garden with Adam and Eve? Now, we just explained it. I just read it. This is 2 separate creations. I don't understand how people want to argue that. It's saying it clearly in your Bible that this is 2 separate creations. You have male and female being created. God says, go, be fruitful, multiply. Why would he tell them to go be fruitful and multiply? We're going to put them in the freaking garden and have them tilling the ground and not tell them nothing. He gave them dominion and, he gave them dominion over the fish and fowls of the air and all that, to just lock them in the garden. This is what he said to that first group of people: go, be fruitful, multiply. Then to Adam and Eve, he got them in the garden, just walking around butt naked, eating off of certain trees. Ain't even explained to them really anything. So this is obviously two creations that is going to become a lot more clear as we go along. So now, there's clearly two creation stories here. Now, when God tells them to go, multiply, and replenish the earth. Now, this is a part that a lot of people just read over, they miss, they don't really pay much attention to. It says to go be fruitful and multiply and replenish the earth. Replenish. Now, we all know what means. Means to do it again, to replenish. If you're replenishing anything, you are basically putting it back. You're fixing something that was already there. You're filling up something, you're restocking, but it always implies that something was already there. So if I'm going to refill a cup of water, that means that there was already water in that cup before. So when he told them, these are supposed to be the first people created, he says, be fruitful and multiply and replenish the earth, implying that there were already people there before. Now understand, when you go to Genesis 9:1, God tells Noah and his family to do the same thing. When you read Genesis 9:1, he says, go be fruitful and multiply and replenish the earth. Why? Because he just destroyed the earth, we know, with the flood. So here we have in Genesis 9:1, after the flood, God's telling Noah and his family to replenish the earth. Why would he say that same exact thing to the first people if they are the first people? Now, again, this is before the creation of Adam and Eve. These are people that he made in his own likeness, and he's telling them to replenish the earth and subdue it, implying that there was already people. So now we're going to come back to this later because it's very important, but it's something I have to point out now because it's going to make a lot of sense later. So now God makes the universe. He makes the heavens and the earth and the fish of the sea and the fowls of the air. He makes male and female in his own image. In the image of God created he him, male and female created he them. And he told them, go be fruitful and multiply. Then God does what? On the seventh day, he rests. Then he realizes, well, wait a minute, he made it rain and there's no man to till my ground, to till my garden. So he forms man from the dust of the ground. So read what it's saying here. It's basically saying man exists already. Then he formed man from the dust of the ground. So if there is no such thing as man, if Adam was the first man and he's creating the first man, how can you say that he formed man from the dust of the ground? There's no such thing as man. So how are you forming man from the dust of the ground? Man don't exist. If this is the first man, that's like me saying, well, I'm going to make an apple from the dust of the ground. I'm going to make this dirt look like an apple. There's no such thing as an apple. So what are you talking about? If you understand what I'm trying to say here. But it's saying he formed man from the dust of the ground, breathed into his nostrils the breath of life. So now, that's like me saying again, what if I say I'm going to form a baseball from the snow of the ground? I'm going to take some snow from the ground, I'm going to form it into a baseball. Now, just because I use snow to make a baseball, to make it look like a baseball, does that mean that, baseballs are made of snow? Of course not. So he formed man from the dust of the ground and breathed into his nostrils the breath of life, implying that this is some kind of fabrication, some kind of fabricated man, some kind of separate man. This is not like the first man he created in his likeness. And it's going to become more clear as we go along. So he formed man from the dust of the ground, put him in his garden, and said, till the ground. Go ahead and do that. So we're talking about a separate creation that was created for something specific, and that was to till the ground. So how can God, in his infinite wisdom, not realize that, well, wait a minute, I'm going to need one of these men to till my ground. He doesn't realize that until he rests. So a lot of people have to think about that. You have a creation before God rests and a creation after God rests. So it's highly unlikely that God will create everything, universe, animals, everything, and rest on the seventh day. Then on the eighth day, create man. So man was created on the eighth day, or was man created before God rests? This is what the Bible is telling you clearly. I mean, it's in the book. For man and woman, then he rests, then you get Adam. What's the problem? So how is Adam the first man when it's telling you clearly in the Bible, in Genesis, before he rests, he made male and female. He rested, then he made Adam. How is Adam the first man? But your Bible tells you that he is the first man. See, like I said, you have to understand the contradictions. And a lot of people can't wrap their head around it because they're too busy following the book instead of reading the book and understanding what's being said. So look, when you go and look at Exodus 24, 9 through 11, it says Moses takes 70 men up to the mountains and they see God and they eat with him. You know, verse 10 says they saw God, the God of Israel. It says, verse 10 says they saw the God of Israel. They seen God. So then when you go read Exodus 33:11, so the Lord spoke to Moses face to face as a man speaks to his friend. Genesis 32:30. For I have seen God face to face, and my life has been preserved. Exodus 33:20. God says, no man shall see, basically shall see him and live. But 1 John 4:12 says that no man has seen God at any time. Clear contradiction. Clear contradiction. So when the Bible says that Adam is the first man, Eve will be the woman of all, clearly a contradiction when we just read in Genesis that he made male and female and told them to go be fruitful and multiply before Adam. He rested, then he made Adam. So how can Adam be the first man? Not only that, he fabricated Adam from the dust of the ground. We don't know how he created the first male and female. It doesn't say. We don't know how they came about. We know they was made in his likeness. But it's implying that the creation of Adam is a fabrication and the creation of Eve is as well. Now, let's be real here. And this is what I understand about people who call themselves rational thinkers and, sane people. We know damn well you can't make no man from the dust of the ground. When has that ever happened? It's not possible. We also know that you can't get no woman from the rib of a man. You can't get a man without a woman, period. So, come on. A man cannot exist on this planet without the woman first. Everybody starts their life on this planet as a female. I'm going to get into that later. Heavy. So now, who are these people in the first creation? Who were these people? The people who was created before Adam and Eve. This whole male and female created he, them. Who are these people? So now, when we look at what we have been told about, human history, I put out a video on it that, African people was here before anybody else and everybody came from us. So we can say in this Bible that it's alluding to the Africans, black people. That's who it's talking about, the original man, the first man, African. Now, the Bible gives you a clue as to who these people are, and a lot of you are not going to agree with it. But I'm going to read it. When you read Genesis 6:1, it says that it came to pass, when the men began to multiply on the face of the earth, and daughters were born unto them, that the sons of God saw the daughters of men, that they were fair, and they took them wives of all which they chose. Now, if I was to say to you that the sons of God are these first men that was created, this male and female created he, them. If I say to you the sons of God were these people, what would you say? Now, most of you would say, no, the sons of God were angels. Anybody who reads the book of Enoch is going to say clearly, what are you talking about? You tripping. The sons of God were angels. But show me in the Bible. We're talking about the Bible here. We're not talking about the book of Enoch yet. We're going to get into the book of Enoch. But show me in the Bible where it says that the sons of God were angels. Whenever the Bible speaks of angels, it calls them angels or cherubims. It never says the sons of God. Who is the Son of God? Jesus is the Son of God. If there were more, then, if this whole book is about, the whole New Testament is about the Son of God. Oh my God, God had a son. It's a big deal. But if he had more than one son, where's the story on these people? So who are these sons of God? They have to be regular people. They have to be regular men. And I'm going to explain to you how we come to that conclusion. And we're going to get into the book of Enoch. Because you got to realize what's being said. So now, when you read where it's talking about Adam having Seth, when Seth is born, it says Seth is born in the image and likeness of Adam. So when you read about the creation of male and female, the first creation, it says, in the image of God created he him. Male and female created he them. He said, let us make man in our own image and likeness. So you have Adam and Eve, Adam having Seth in his own image and likeness. So he was made in the image and likeness of Adam, and he was Adam's son. These first men and women were made in the image and likeness of God, so they were what? The sons of God. Never in this book. Get your mind out of the book of Enoch. It's going to make sense in a second, because I know y'all like, oh, this nigga tripping. It doesn't say nothing about these men being angels at all. It's not in here. You won't find it. So look, let's make this a little bit more clear. Let's go to the book of Job. When you go to Job 1:6, it says, now there was a day when the sons of God came to present themselves before the Lord, and Satan came among them. So let's just analyze this for a second. Most of you believe that the sons of God are angels.